Hey, Tyler, how long have we been stuck in these boxes for?
I don't know. It feels like just an endless amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember ever not doing this? Ever not being here, stuck in this, talking about these things?
No, I don't remember anything. I mean, I remember my name, but outside of that, all I remember is this existence.
Yeah. But pain's still real. I definitely still feel pain, but
Right.
yeah, I guess there's no way I could escape that. Do you feel anything? Hunger, thirst, anything?
No, no. I mean, yeah, occasionally then I will drink from my water bottle, but other than that, yeah, that's
Yeah. I feel nothing, but I've been talking to a therapist about that for a long time anyway, and that seems separate from this whole issue.
ah, right.
Yeah. Welcome to Twilight Zone Tuesdays. My name is Nathan,
And I'm Tyler.
and we are talking about five characters in search of an exit, which is season 3, episode 14. And I don't have the exact release date in front of me. I'll look it up after. But season 3, episode 14. This is a series in which we are looking at 13 of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes, and then we're having a quick discussion and review of each episode. And so we talk for a minimum of 13 minutes. Um, and so, yeah, like this episode's an interesting one. If you thought that the creepiest moment in Toy Story was like Sid, it's like this takes it in a whole other direction.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that is what instantly comes to my mind with this episode. It's just Toy Story.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it is a fun episode. I originally saw it on TV,
Okay.
which is like probably the only Twilight Zone episode that I ever actually saw on TV.
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one to
Yeah.
see on television. Now we do have a sponsor, and then we'll get into the actual discussion. So our sponsor for this week is the Christmas toy drive. Listen, folks, if you've got toys in your house that you absolutely loathe and hate, and you want them to have an existential crisis in the bottom of some kind of like outdoor barrel for a Christmas toy drive, you just want to torment these things because they've been tormenting you, whatever it happens to be, like a Lego that you stepped on, some creepy doll that you just can't stand, or some bear that its eyes seem to follow you wherever you move in the house. Round up all of those toys. You don't even have to ask your kids permission. Bring them to a Christmas toy drive, put them in there, and just laugh as you drive away, thinking about how they're going to be tormented with this existential crisis of who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? It's a good solution.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a better solution for that,
Right.
so.
Donate your most hated toys today. All right, folks. I hope you enjoy.
There is a fifth discussion beyond that which is known to man. It is a discussion as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between anger and joy, between silence and outrage, and it lies between the pit of Nathan's fears and the summit of Tyler's knowledge. This is a discussion of intellectual properties. It is a podcast which we call Ignore the Bell.
All right, so we're talking about the episode Five Characters in Search of an Exit from the original Twilight Zone series. So this was, I laughed when I saw this. So the original air date was December 22nd, 1961. This was a Christmas episode, and it's such a nightmare for toys. So yeah, I love the fact that they released it on December 22nd when it's just such a nightmare of an episode for toys. Now, the teleplay is by Rod Serling. Uh, but the interesting thing, and I'm curious if anybody can help me out with this. So it says, this is at least the Wikipedia entry, so whether it's accurate or not. But I've done a little bit of research beyond this, and it seems to hold up. It was based off of a story called The Depository by Marvin Peddle. But as best I can tell, because I've tried to explore this, because it's not in my book, if you've been following this, then the Twilight Zone episodes that were based off of original short stories that were not written for the Twilight Zone, I've got them in a collected anthology of the Twilight Zone short stories, but it's not in there. And so, as best I can tell, this short story was just never published. And I guess Rod Serling found it somehow. I don't know if this was like a screenwriter or something like that who had a short story. In any case, he got the story credit. So,
Right. Yeah.
and he did sell the broadcast rights to it, the what is it, theatrical rights. But yeah, it looks like it wasn't published. I'm really curious though, because I would love to read the short story, but I can't find
Yeah.
it. So if anybody can help me out and find the actual story, The Depository by Marvin Peddle, that'd be great, because I would definitely love to read that and talk about it on the channel.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Because this is such a great concept.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, yeah.
it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we had talked, about it being like reminiscent of Toy Story, but this is obviously, decades before
Right.
Toy Story.
That's the thing.
Um,
It's not a nightmare version of Toy Story. It's like who wrote Toy Story, by the way? I'm sure you know this.
uh, it was a collection of people, including
Okay.
John Lasseter, Pete Docter. Um, I think it
The
was Pete
Pixar
Docter. Yeah.
directors.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's like these guys watched this episode and went, well, that's dark. What if we somehow take this concept and make it really whimsical and charming?
Right. Yeah.
Because Toy Story is basically the lovely version of this concept of, but I mean, even in the episode towards the end, then it's like they get life from like children playing with them and all of that. Like you do have that little mention towards the end of it. I forget the exact line. I think it's Rod Serling's line, uh, where it says, but this added hopeful note, perhaps they are unloved only for the moment. In the arms of children, there could be nothing but love. And
Right.
so, you know, because in Toy Story, the toys are delighted when they have a child who really cares for them, doesn't abuse them like you get in Toy Story 3, right? But
Right.
genuinely loves them and cares for them. But at the same time, they seem to have a pretty good time when kids are not around too.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and that is the interesting thing about this episode because all the characters start off with not having any memory of
Yes.
anything prior. They don't
Yes.
remember their former owner or
Right.
or playing with, whatever children that yeah, so it's interesting because it's almost as if like once they became unloved or forgotten,
Mhm.
then they forgot
Yeah.
their memory.
Just like
Um,
resets.
yeah, yeah. But it's interesting that they do come to life in this donation bin.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, and what they know and what they don't know is such an interesting part of this concept where
Hmm.
they are intelligent and they seem to have fears and um, you know what I mean? Like when they look up, like the clown especially seems to be particularly insightful. Um,
Right.
like when he looks up and it's like, what is that? It's like, oh, it could be the sun, it could be a light, could be the light from like a microscope or whatever else. He gives a whole bunch of things. So it's like, oh, you've got a good concept of different sources of light. You're not just a
Yeah.
stupid little toy. Like you're pretty intelligent. You're pretty educated. Um, it's an
Mhm.
interesting thing
Yeah, yeah.
what
And then
they
even
know and what
the
they don't.
Yeah, because even the soldier, he says, "Oh, I'm a major." It's like, well,
Yeah,
how does he know that? And he knows what hell is, but
right.
he
They know what
doesn't
hell
know
is.
he
Yeah.
doesn't know his name.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's because the episode, I'm not even sure. I I don't know how well it works if you are seeing it for the first time compared to seeing it like a second or third or fourth or fifth time, because the first time it's definitely a mystery as you're
Right.
watching because you're saying like, and it holds up because you look at this and you're like, okay, so they've all got some kind of amnesia, and are they in some kind of like, saw social experiment, you know what I mean, like
Right.
Jigsaw, like
Yeah.
who's like torturing these people in some way and he drugged them and they don't know where they came from, because that's basically what Saw is. It's basically
Yeah.
what this thing is doing. It's so crazy how you look at these Twilight Zone episodes that you're like, wait, Has there ever been an original concept since the Twilight Zone? Is everything based off of Twilight Zone episodes? Right?
Yeah.
And but you look at that and it's such a nightmare scenario. And then by the end, that twist of realizing, oh my goodness, they're toys.
Mm-hmm.
And that explains this thing, this structure that they find themselves in. That's such a compelling mystery as you're watching the first time. But then when you're watching a second time and the fact that they are toys, and then you're saying,
Yeah.
but look at the questions they're asking themselves, because they are asking themselves existential questions of who am I? Why don't I feel anything? What came before? What comes in the future? And that whole comment that you get from the clown, like there is no past or future. There's only this forever nothingness that they're experiencing, and it's not purgatory. They ultimately get to the conclusion that this is hell, that hell is just like an endless waiting room, which is like, that seems pretty awful too, because getting tormented is bad, but just this nothingness forever seems pretty bad also.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the idea that they don't need to eat or drink, but they do feel pain. Like it's just like, what?
That's a really creepy addition. Isn't it? That they don't, like, it doesn't really seem like they experience like pleasant things, because eating and drinking, that could be a very pleasant experience, right? But they don't really get that, but they definitely can feel pain. It's like, well, that's a really creepy addition to their existence.
No, absolutely. It's so strange. And getting back to like what they know and what they don't, like, okay, so the ballerina knows how to dance. But the clown, he apparently knows nothing about the circus, even though he knows that he is a clown.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? Like, it's so strange.
Right.
I wonder if it, potentially would be something about like what their former owner would have embedded them with, right? Like the ballerina knows how to dance,
maybe
because
the little girl, presumably it's a girl, like danced her around.
But the clown, like, didn't ever do anything circus-like or whatever.
But the bagpiper, I mean, I guess if a kid was like making bagpipe sounds as they played with him,
right?
But I don't know what psycho parent gets their kid a hobo for a toy.
Yeah, I know. That's a strange.
Merry Christmas, kid. I got you a hobo. This is your future. This is who you're gonna be, you tramp. Why did you even buy it for me?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That is the strangest of the collection, and I don't know why they decided to include that.
And he's a sad hobo too.
Right.
He seems so depressed, and in a place where everybody's depressed, he seems especially depressed.
But we also like don't get a lot from him, which is the really strange thing. And I don't know, if maybe the short story
I know, but
has more for him, but
because I've looked, and as best I can tell, like there's a bunch of people, like, or at least maybe not a bunch, but several people who are interested, and they're like, can't find it. Maybe it was unpublished.
Right.
So, but yeah, like one of my favorite lines of this episode is when, and I want to talk about the technical aspect of how they did this, of them climbing up, each other, where they form this like human ladder essentially. And then like when the ballerina, she's hurt her ankle, right? So they can, I guess, get injured. I don't know how they recover from injuries, considering that they're like wood or plastic. But in any case, unless it's all like psychosomatic, they believe that they've been injured from a fall because they think that they're real.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was curious about like what type of doll they are. Like if the ballerina is like a porcelain thing, then it could be like fractured.
So then she's never gonna recover.
Right. Yeah.
She'll never dance right again.
Oh man,
At least
it's
not
so
on her
dark.
own. With a little girl, or that it hurts her every time. She's like, dance, dance. And she's like, ow, ow,
Oh
ow.
man.
Yeah, but like one of my favorite lines is like, so she gets injured, she's down on the ground, and Rod Serling already established that this guy's not a tramp, he's a hobo, right? He
Right.
just used the word
Yeah.
tramp. And then they're like, okay, you know, the girl stays on the floor. Now, the tramp, you get up there. And I'm like, hey, I thought you just said the girl stays on the floor, right? If that little bit of dialogue was thrown in there, it'd be brilliant. But I don't know when we started using the word tramp to no longer mean hobo and start to mean like a loose woman, like a
Right.
woman of,
Yeah.
you know, disrepute.
Yeah. That's, oh man, that would have been hilarious.
Maybe in part because I've shown this to a high school class before and they giggle so hard at that line when they hear the word tramp. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, you get enough teenage boys in a room who are gonna like shout their comments, and it's like I can't watch this the same way again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it is. There is the interesting moment where the ballerina seems to be wanting to kiss the soldier. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and I again think back to Toy Story, where you've
Yes.
got Woody and Bo Peep. Bo Peep, of course, being a porcelain doll and everything. And it's just really interesting to see that there are those parallels. Uh,
Mm.
and a soldier compared to a cowboy doll and all
Yes.
that. And so I don't know, how much this did inspire them.
I
Um,
mean, I know for sure that this is one of the most famous Twilight Zone episodes.
mm,
It's I don't know where it would rank. I would say I would not be surprised if it's in the top 10. And I mean, I don't quite know how you would do this, how you determine the most famous Twilight, because it seems so subjective, because some people will
right.
remember others rather, like 10 rather than a different set of 10. But
Yeah.
I know that it is one of the most popular ones ever because it stands out in the series
Mhm.
because it's not like because you get different themes within the series. You get a lot of like Cold War anxieties, fear of nuclear annihilation. You get a lot of aliens, alien invasion narratives. We're on a different planet, that type of thing. But this is just such a different one. Like I
Yeah.
don't I don't know of another episode that's like this where it's such a mystery. They're going through this existential angst of who are we, how did we get here, all of this like meaning and purpose, and desperately trying to get out of this you know cylinder. and,
Right.
and so I cannot imagine that it's possible that the writers of Toy Story did not know of this episode, because
Mhm.
I don't know how old these guys are, like Lassiter and Doctor and the others, but they've got to have at least 10 years on me, but I imagine probably like 20.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that's a good estimate.
And I mean, the Twilight Zone reruns have been on television had been on television. I'm sure like they're airing somewhere, right? But for
Right.
so long that it's like I was born in 84. If I'm aware of it, like there's no way guys who were born in the 60s who are in Hollywood are not aware of this episode. I
Yeah. Yeah.
gotta think that, not that, and I'm not saying that they did it in any kind of nefarious way. I,
Right.
I'm saying just the premise alone is so fascinating, of toys that look like toys when kids are not playing with them, but then they come to life. Because in Toy Story, the thing is like Woody's face is wooden and it doesn't move when, you know what I mean? But what kind of movie would that be?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if even when if Andy's not there, if Woody's face doesn't move, his lips don't move, he can't blink or
Right.
like move his arms or anything. So
Yeah.
like there's so much of this episode of the Twilight Zone that just seems like they got the story universe, but they just for Toy Story, but they just took it in a very different thematic direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, so speaking of unmoving features, that final shot in this episode, I don't even really know like how they did it, whether that was just you
Yeah.
know like models, like or like mannequins or whatever, but like it's very unnerving to see the unblinking eyes, and they're definitely not just the people not blinking. Those are
Right.
glossy eyes, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
I don't know how they did that either. That's a good question because it really is unnerving. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's that element, and the other thing that
It's actually a great example of like the uncanny valley, but it's
yeah,
intentional.
right, absolutely, yeah, that these things that look very close to human, but something's off, which is really disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, uh, and I just from a technical standpoint, because it seems like we talk about this basically every time we watch an episode, but I think it, and rightfully so,
Mhm.
the way they form the human ladder and climb on each other.
Yeah.
I I'm sure that like this is what they did. I'm sure that you caught it as well. They just filmed it flat,
Right. Yeah.
right? And then they just like shake their legs in the way like to make it seem like they're tipping, right? Oh, we
Yeah.
might fall over, but they're just on like a flat surface. And then the way they shoot the ballerina, then they might have had like, you know, one person standing on top of another against the wall, and then she's there, and because you can kind of see a little bit of that, enough to give the illusion that they really are standing on top of each other all the way towards the top of the
Yeah.
cylinder. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to point out that it's like practical effects,
Yeah.
camera angles, and just the way you shoot things, that you don't need to have CGI, you don't need to have green screen to achieve a pretty good illusion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, yeah, a better illusion than many films.
That's what I'm saying. Like it holds up better. Like that looks more realistic to me than a lot, not maybe not most, but a lot of CGI.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
The
Um,
I had like one other thing that I really wanted to bring up. So
mhm.
um it seems like with Lost, with the TV show Lost, it seems like that's what Lost was kind of going for a while. It was five
Right.
characters in search of an exit of, is this real? Is this not real? Are we in hell? Are we in purgatory? Our memories of our past lives, how real is that? How long have we been on this island? Is this island even a real place with all the strange things going on? Uh,
Yeah.
and Lost explores that for a while, like even into its final season, when it like
Yeah.
you really start getting into like different timelines and kind of
Yeah.
after they're off of the island and there's still weird stuff going on that I mean, I'm sure that J.J. Abrams was a big Twilight Zone fan. Like, I can't
Mm.
imagine somebody who's like so interested in science fiction and you
Right.
like, there's no way that he wasn't interested in the Twilight Zone. So I wonder how much Five Characters in Search of an Exit influenced the writing of Lost.
hmm Yeah. Yeah, and on that note, it is really interesting that um, uh, like I love the way that we are in the exact same position as the characters in terms of our
Yeah.
uh, like our uh, level of omniscience, or like our point
Yes.
of view, right? Like it's
Yes.
we are very limited in what we know. We only know what the characters know. Because it
Yeah.
would be, and I mean, like, this is a classic Twilight Zone thing, but it would be a very different episode if we knew from, as you kind of alluded to, if we knew that they were toys from the beginning, or,
Right.
if we had, seen the bin and then, like, we go down inside the bin, like, that would have
Yes.
given us a much different um, viewing experience. And
It
so
would
I
have been
like,
dramatic irony the entire time because we know more than they
right.
do. But instead, we
Yeah.
identify with the major because the way it opens is we start in on the major and he basically has just arrived and he's
Yeah.
trying to orient himself in this cylinder. And so the other ones have been there for a while and they explain, they don't really give him much information, but they've kind of resigned themselves to just this is their existence, and he
Right.
has not resigned himself to that. And us as viewers, we don't want that to be just the episode. We don't want it to be, okay, they'll just sit there for another like 20 minutes.
Right.
Like, do something. Try to like get some answers here, because this is baffling. And so like I think we very much we've latched on to the major, and that's who we're identifying with. And it's such an effective way of doing it. You just start by zooming in on him at the very beginning, and he wants answers, and it's like, so do we. So he becomes our stand-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's about all that I had to say on this episode. It is so brilliant. I love the concept. Yeah.
Me too. That's basically all that I have to say. I mean, I was so delighted when I first saw this, because I didn't see this until my mid-20s, and I had watched a lot of the Twilight Zone, and for whatever reason I just missed this episode. And I remember, because I had been showing Twilight Zone episodes in my English class for a while, maybe like 3 or 4 a year, like a semester, and I would pair them with short stories or books or whatever. You see all the different influences. And I had a student who said, what about the 5 characters in search of an exit? And I thought that I was pretty familiar with the series, because I had probably seen I want to say maybe 50 of the 160 something episodes there are. So it's a decent amount. And I thought that I had seen the best. And then I'm like, it's not going to be good. I've seen the best ones. It's not going to be good. I've seen the best ones. And then I watched it, and I was like, how have I never seen this one? This is so great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. This is probably my favorite that I've seen so far. Because I love this episode so much.
It's just
brilliant.
Such interesting writing. It seems it continues to surprise me, because it just seems so freaking dark, even for the Twilight Zone.
Right.
And because they're not, it's what could be more disturbing, people who end up in a really bad situation, but they're still people. It's okay, nuclear annihilation and all of this stuff, and it's but there's still a person. But this whole existential question of who am I and what's my meaning, what's my purpose, and to say they're not human, they're not real, but they feel real. And then you're because that ultimately gets down to the ontological question of what does it mean to be human. And it sure seems like they've got all the characteristics of being a human, a lot of them, but none of the benefits of being human.
Right. Yeah.
They have no agency. They don't get to experience pleasure, but they get to experience pain. And like I say, they have no agency. They have no control over their own existence. Right. And they're just kind of dumped around from one place to the next. Because we never get to see children playing with them. There's no happy ending. It's just, hey, how can you experience anything but love in the care of children? And then Toy Story 3 is oh, there's definitely ways to not experience love in the care of children.
Right.
If they're too young and they're just using the toys.
Which incidentally is the story of Pixar's original Toy Story style thing, which was a Tin Toy, where you've got this hideous, monstrous baby marching around, and all the toys are hiding under a couch. So,
right.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, no, it's really great, and the baby is honestly just terrifying. Not because it's actually supposed to be, really, but just because the animation at the time was what is that thing?
That's amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess one last thing with this episode is it's interesting that, of course, the Major is able to get out of the bin. Yeah. And then he just falls into the snow.
Yeah.
And then we don't get to see, what he does or, thinks or sees once he falls. And it's just, the girl just puts him right back in the bin.
Yeah.
And that's just horrifying in and of itself, of he's just right back in there. But
yeah, no, if it went even a little bit further, right, to come back, and then it's what is it out there? It's just an abyss. It's cold and it's white and there's nothingness, right? If that's his only experience, like there really is nothing else but this right here.
Right.
You can imagine that's like, unless he saw the people, he's like, there's giants roaming around and they'll destroy us. They picked me up like I was nothing and dumped me back in here. We're their pets.
Yeah. But I do wonder, like I guess I would really love to see what any of the humans' reactions would be to, seeing this little toy soldier like flip out of the bin,
That's a great point. Just as like he comes out of the bin and then like topples over and falls off the side. Oh yeah. I think it would just kill it. Burn it.
Right.
Especially in 1961. They're not thinking like, oh, this must have been made in Japan, some little like robotic thing.
Right.
Just, that thing's possessed. That's evil. Kill it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, please let us know what you think of this episode. Did you like it as much as we did? How can you not? And all of that stuff. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Imagine, if you will, subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Leave your comments below and maybe, just maybe, you'll receive a response. All for a channel referred to by many as Ignore the Bell.